Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm Mike Mrowicki and I'm the state representative for the new Windham 4 district of Putney, Dummerston, and Westminster. Thanks to all the people at BCTV for allowing us some more time to bring our work from Montpelier closer to you. Today's guest is Representative Matt Trieber. Matt represents Rockingham, lives in Bellows Falls. And what are the other towns that you represent?
Rockingham, Grafton, Athens, Brookline, Windham, and part of Westminster. It's the old Windham 4.
The old Windham 4 district. Since we had redistricting this year, some of the numbers changed, although in this county, the House district really didn't change. Matt and I served together this year on the House Human Services Committee, and I got to see up front and personal what a great job Matt did. Working on House Human Services Committee is a very complex undertaking. The Agency of Human Services is the largest of the state agencies. It encompasses everything from child care to prisons, corrections, health care, mental health care, and aging and disability services. There's a lot for us to take into consideration, and Matt did a great job coming up to speed, doing some hard work, and working together with the committee to do a lot of work this year on behalf of Vermonters who really need a voice in Montpelier, and I think especially the elderly people, disabled, young children. This year, we did a lot of work on mental health because of how Tropical Storm Irene destroyed the institution we had, and we redid our whole system of delivery of health care for those experiencing mental health. Our first year of the session, we did a lot of work as well. And why don't you share for a minute your reflections on your first term? You were appointed to succeed Michael Bohusky, who had been in the House almost 40 years, awfully big shoes to fill, but I think you did an admirable job, and I just wonder how it went for you.
Well, it's a really unique experience to be up there. Nothing had prepared me for it. Nothing could prepare me for what it was really like to be up there. To walk into the committee room the first time and essentially get alphabet soup thrown at you for all the different agencies and programs and how to deal with them, and then the budgets for these programs was really it was quite an experience to have to understand all that. Not to mention what's happening on the floor and following things in the other committees and trying to work with people to get things that your district wants done heard. So there's a whole lot of pieces that come together, I think, and the experience of putting it together was a little mind-blowing at first, but ultimately fairly worthwhile once I was able to get my feet on the ground. And then, you think you have an idea of how things are going to work or what you're planning on doing, and then something like Irene hits. And the next thing you know, the committee is now responsible for, like you said, changing the method of dealing with mental health care throughout the state, and focusing on that for a while. That was a really interesting process for me, and I'm really proud of the way we came about doing it. I think we moved Vermont to the forefront of the country for how we deliver health care.
Well, I think it's an example of Governor Shumlin's leadership in that he took a really devastating experience for the whole state, but especially because of how it destroyed the state hospital, and it helped us move ahead. There'd been work for 10 years to try and do some of the work we did just last year, and my hat's off to the governor for using this as an opportunity to change that system. And basically what we did was we changed what we called an institutional system, which was dependent upon a large institution, but it also kept people in perhaps longer than they needed to be, to change to what we call a recovery system, where we want to get people access to services much quicker than we had in the past. We want it to be closer to home because the research shows that the closer to home, the quicker they get services, the less they're going to need the acute care of an institution. And we're well on the way to that. There's been a little bump in the road right now, and I think we were just talking about how FEMA funding the federal emergency funding is a little bit up in the air right now. And one of the things that we found out, though, is we had, in fact, put a contingency in there for the Brattleboro Retreat and for the Rutland Hospital that should FEMA money get delayed or not fully approved, that these institutions would then capitalize their projects, the progress would move ahead, and then they would recoup those costs later on through their billing to the state at a little higher level. And I think it's another example of how working together these contingencies were thought about, and we put that in there. There were some other pieces in the first year around healthcare reform that dominated the session, along with the recovery from the slow economic experiences that the country and the world is really facing. This is an important thing in your district as well, and I know you've been working hard to help some economic factors move ahead. Do you want to share a little bit about what's been going on there?
When talking about single-payer healthcare, which was one of the key triumphs, so to speak, of the last session, there's two schools of thought with it, and I kind of subscribe a little bit to both of them. That to have uninsured Vermonters that then we all end up paying for is an unacceptable method of delivering healthcare. But I think it's important to look at it from another side too, especially for border communities, which you and I both represent. When you're dealing with one of the largest and most expensive costs for private employers to carry is health insurance benefits, and that's a non-payroll item. So if you have the ability to take a portion of that off of the backs of the employers, I think when you're dealing with a state like New Hampshire right next door, it becomes an opportunity to start to have a discussion with these businesses to say, which side of the river do you want to locate on? Where do your employees want to live, and where is your property tax rates going to go up, as well as income tax to the state for workers that are here? I think it offers an opportunity for us to be more of a business destination than we have been.
And I think from what I'm hearing, some states are not going to participate fully with federal health care reform, and because of that, they won't be eligible for the kinds of monies that will be available to help businesses and individuals buy health insurance. And my understanding is that there is such a sentiment in New Hampshire. So in the long run, that may hurt their economy and help Vermont. And there's been a lot of talk about whether Vermont's tax structure and compared to New Hampshire's helps or hurts us. This is an example where I think what we're doing in Vermont is really going to help business, and I think New Hampshire's really shooting itself in the foot. This is what's scheduled to happen in 2014. Vermont is ahead of almost all states in setting up its exchange, and in 2014, Vermonters and businesses will be able to avail themselves of federal funds to help pay for their health care costs. If New Hampshire opts out of that, that makes Vermont look even better. So I agree. It's a good point that you've put up.
And I don't know if you had the same frustrations with this past year that I did, but this past year's health care bill almost seemed like a step backward, even though it was a step forward, just because we had, with the single payer vote, had taken steps to move so far ahead in the country that then, due to federal law, have to move back. But ultimately, the idea of allowing Vermont to control its own healthcare destiny was sort of the idea behind that.
It's interesting that some of the things we're hearing in this campaign about healthcare reform, and I wonder if you'd like to comment, because there's some people out there saying, well, I support healthcare reform, but I don't support it if it adds taxes, or I don't support it unless it provides a certain level of care. I think that kind of equivocation and adding those qualifications is one way. People are trying to have it both ways, saying, well, I support healthcare reform, but I really don't. And here's a chance for you to go on the record. How do you feel about healthcare reform, and are you moving forward with it, or are you trying to step back in some way?
I think with healthcare reform, it's important to keep your eye off in the distance at what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal, I think, benefits all Vermonters. It will benefit Vermont businesses. It will benefit Vermont employees. There will be steps along the way that will seem relatively difficult to do. Nothing is free.
Yeah.
It costs money. We have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately, the way this legislature has been moving forward very slowly on this process, very methodically, we will come up with a way that pays for a system that's good, that benefits all these different areas of Vermonters, but at the same time probably is actually cheaper in the long run by far than the instantaneous gratification that you may get or fear that you may get from a certain aspect of it, such as how to pay for it.
Yeah. I think what we're sharing is there's enough money out there in the system right now to more than pay for what we're doing right now. What I and many other people are saying is what we need to do is make sure that our healthcare dollars get spent on healthcare. And that's not the way it is in the system right now. By eliminating those middle people in there, by eliminating some of the administrative costs that are going toward it, we can not only insure everybody, but we can start to make improvements around higher reimbursement rates for primary care physicians, technology improvements, capital improvements, things that hospitals have been holding back on or cutting back on because of the way things are structured now. And I think that's the big picture that you're alluding to, that keep our eye on the prize, and we're going to get there. We have a plan, and there's enough money in the system right now. We don't have to raise taxes. We may have to find a different way of sidestepping or taking a step to the side of how employers contribute to that, but we're not going to be adding costs to this. We're going to be lowering costs.
Yeah, I meant more that when you start to get into the weeds of the situation, talking points can come up that seem sort of scary, and we have to be wary of that, I think.
What I remind people is the future as we know it now is even scarier if we don't do something, because it's not sustainable. The reality for most Vermonters is they're paying more and more for less and less benefits, and that's not sustainable. What we're saying is we can continue to provide health care for all Vermonters. That kind of access is going to improve our health outcomes because people won't be waiting. We have rationing right now. If you don't think we have rationing right now, then you haven't been on a waiting list to try and get health care. But that's the reality right now. We want to do away with that by having more access for people. The other thing is, I think it's going to be more attractive to a lot of physicians to want to be in Vermont. Less paperwork, more patient time. That's what I think most doctors are asking for.
That's what I've heard from physicians that have spoken to me about it, so I'm excited about that.
This was our governor's first term as well as yours. Any reflections on what it's been like working with Governor Shumlin?
I was very impressed with Governor Shumlin over the course of the 2 years. I think this governor was hit by quite a bit of natural disasters, a very aggressive agenda right up front, right out of the gate. He hit the ground running, and I think to have to deal with that, he really showed what he's made of. I was really impressed to see what he was able to do as far as FEMA and Irene, and constantly being an advocate for the state. I think to within the first year of term as governor, get your signature legislation passed and through is another real attribute for him, and all the while continuing to put forward balanced budgets. And I know they weren't always popular amongst members of even his own party, but he put forward balanced budgets that ended up trying to look at the bottom line for Vermonters, and understanding that we're in hard times. I think when you put all that together, he did an amazing job the past 2 years.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm hearing around town is and around the county and the state is there's a little surprise from the business community at how pro-business Governor Shumlin has been. And it's not surprising to those of us who know him because he is a small businessman. He knows what it is to make a payroll. He knows what it is to try and grow a company. And I think there's a real contrast to the previous governor who was actually somebody who's been in government all his life. The Governor Shumlin, knows what it is to keep business going, and I think that surprised a lot of people. And the reality is our economy is in much better shape than it was 2 years ago. Compared to the rest of the country, our economy is looking as solid as any, and I think people are looking at us and saying, "What are you doing?" Well, I think it's an example of the governor, the legislature working together and looking at the big picture and doing what's right for Vermont. Looking ahead, we've got a few minutes left here. What are the things you'd like to do next year? Would you like to stay on this committee? Would you like to move to another committee? Do you have things in the realm of legislation that you'd like to see happen?
Well, I always joked with Ann Pugh, who's the chair of the Human Services Committee, because when I was looking at the list of committees, and I was sitting there going, please not human services, please not human services, anything but human services. And it ended up being one of the most worthwhile placements for me. When constituents speak to me about issues, they're very often related to the Human Services Committee, and your committee is where you can make the most difference. So that's extremely helpful. I continue to towards the end of last year, we started to deal with some prescription drug monitoring or prescription drug abuse issues. And I have a lot of reservations with having walked away at the end, not accomplishing anything for Vermonters in need with that. Because this is an issue that's affecting, prescription drug abuse is affecting and tearing apart families. It's leading to increased crime rates. And there were very simple things that we could have done that didn't get done because we ran out of time. And I think, other than that, I'm interested to continue to contribute to the conversations of how we pay for the single payer discussion. I would like to see a lot of the business community brought on board with that because I think that they're a very vital voice to hear at the table, and I want to speak to their legitimate concerns about how to do that in a positive manner.
I appreciate the work you did, and I'm not sure if people are aware that even though you're a freshman, you were the point person on our committee for the legislation with trying to address the prescription drug abuse. You did some great work. It's unfortunate that the Senate wasn't ready to recognize 95% of the agreements we had on this and walked away from the table rather than because they couldn't get the whole pie. But the Senate does work differently than the House. In any event, you did some great work as a freshman or as anyone. And I think one of the things you did was to articulate clearly this is a system that needs restructuring. It's not just one piece that's going to change how we got into this dilemma of prescription drugs being abused. It's not just a legal issue. It's not just a medical issue.
And it's not just a law enforcement issue.
That's right.
And that was the real thing. And my one concern that I had was the potential ramifications. While we're moving to electronic medical records and we're moving towards aggregated databases, I had a real fear that if we were opening a door even slightly to access to Vermonters' medical records for a very worthwhile purpose of fighting prescription drug abuse, that would break a trust with Vermonters for us in the future as far as access to medical records. And I think Vermonters really want to know that their medical records were going to be secure, and that was a pledge.
It is one of the concerns I'm hearing from Vermonters as we move towards electronic medical records, and that is a key piece of healthcare reform. Health information technology will serve those two main outcomes we're looking for, which is better health better health outcomes and lower costs. It's one of those pieces, though, that's creating a lot of concern in the health community because it's a big change. And there's costs affiliated with that we don't know if they're going to be fully covered. But in the long run, I think we're going to be better off. The concern that you raised, rightly so, is are those records going to be secure? And I appreciate the work you did on that to make sure that Vermonters could know that their health records are going to be secure. They're not going to be opened up at the whim of anyone, and that those of us who are in charge of making sure those are protected are going to do just that and protect their freedoms there. What is it that you're most proud of that you're able to accomplish for the people of Bellows Falls and Rockingham this term?
I think when you're a freshman representative, there's sort of limited, or for a lot of people, there's limited ways to really make a huge difference. And when you're from a border community, especially like Bellows Falls, and you see the difference between the New Hampshire side of the river and the Vermont side of the river in your face all the time, one of the things that I was really happy to get involved in and was my proudest accomplishment, I think, overall, was being instrumental in delivering the almost $500,000 to Windham County for economic development. Part of that is ultimately going to end up in my district, I think, and I'm really excited for the potential for job growth, increases to the grand list, and ways that will really benefit the community in that area. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, well, good work there.
Crowning achievement. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to share before we head off for today? Contact information, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. People can either call me at 802-376-1134 or my email address, matrieber, Trieber, @gmail.com. And I always like to talk to constituents and see what they're interested in, because that's what we're supposed to be bringing up to Montpeliers.
Right. And even though we're not in session right now, I remind people that we are still your representatives. If you have a question, whether it's how to help an elderly parent, how to help a child, if there's a road in your neighborhood that's not being fixed fast enough, you can call us any time of the year. We're working for you. We don't get paid this time of year, but we have taken on this responsibility, and we volunteer our time readily. So until January and after the elections, we are still working for you, so feel free to contact us. I know I appreciate hearing from people, whether they have comments, suggestions, or concerns, and Matt likewise is sharing his information here, so feel free to give us a call. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your work this year, and I look forward to working together with you again next year.
Hope so.
And with Governor Shumlin again. And thanks again for joining us here. Thanks to the folks at BCTV for making this possible. And until next time, this is Mike Mrowicki for Montpelier Connections.